The Moray Eel. If you've ever pushed a hand into a rock crevice while snorkeling, this is the animal you were gambling against. The jaws you can see aren't the ones that eat you. A giant moray runs close to 10 feet and 66 pounds, longer than the bed you sleep in, and heavier than a dog you'd struggle to lift. Inside a narrow rock tunnel, there's no room to swallow by suction, so this one went mechanical. A second set of jaws sits in its throat, and the instant the front jaws clamp shut, they launch forward into the mouth, hook the prey on backward pointing teeth, and drag it back. So it has a mouth, and then behind that, a backup mouth. Great. Strip away the details, and every eel is the same crude shape. A tube with a mouth. Nature looked at this one and thought, needs more teeth further back. Most people assume that constantly gaping mouth is a threat display. It has no gill cover, so gaping is how it pushes water over its gills. It isn't warning you, it's breathing. So the moray doesn't need to be fast or strong or even interested. It just needs your hand in the hole when the second mouth arrives. The snake eel. Getting eaten is supposed to be the end of the story. For this one, it's a stage of the story. Snake eels reverse into sand using the tail that ends in a hard, sharpened, bone-tipped spike. Nature handed this thing a shovel for a tail, and a shovel works on a stomach too. When a grouper or a heron swallows one whole, the eel does the only thing it knows how to do. Drives that tail backward and goes straight through the stomach wall from the inside. Which sounds like a win. It isn't. On the far side of the stomach is the body cavity, and past that, the outer wall, which the eel can't get through. It's now sealed inside a living animal with no exit. Researchers who worked through 11 species of predatory fish around Australia found snake eels inside 7 of them. Somewhere between escape and freedom, the plan just runs out of road. The predator swims off and lives a completely normal life, carrying a mummified eel in its chest that got 90% of the way out. The Garden Eel. Divers have swum straight over these colonies without registering a single animal, because the whole field reads as seagrass. Then, the meadow flinches. Each garden eel digs a permanent burrow, lines it with mucus so the sand can't collapse, anchors its tail down there, and extends the front third of its body up into the current. That's the entire life. It never leaves. Not to hunt, not even to spawn. It faces upstream, picks specks of zooplankton out of passing water, and at the first shadow drops tail first down the tube and vanishes. Density runs around 15 animals per square meter. Colonies climb into the hundreds and sometimes past 1,000, which means one patch of sand the size of a dinner table can hold more living animals than a small apartment building holds people. Plankton doesn't need chasing, it needs intercepting. So the winning body is an anchor with a reach. An entire species looked at the concept of leaving the house and passed, and it's been working for millions of years. If watching me take animals apart like this is your thing, I put out new ones regularly, and a subscribe from you goes a long way. Thanks. The Electric Eel. It lives in shallow, muddy South American water that people wade through to fish, and it doesn't need to touch you to hurt you. The dangerous version is the one that isn't in the water anymore. In 2019, scientists split what everyone treated as one species into 3, and one of them discharges up to 860 volts. Your wall socket runs 120. A livestock fence is built to stop something the size of a cow. This one delivers all of it directly through skin. Kenneth Catania documented eels rearing out of the water in 2016, pressing their chin against a target and climbing it while firing. Submerged, the discharge spreads out, and most of it is wasted. Out of the water, there's one path to ground, whatever the chin is touching. Humboldt described this in 1800, and biologists called it an exaggeration for 2 centuries. Same silhouette as everything else here, a tube with a mouth, except this one is wired. And despite the name, it isn't a true eel. It's a knife fish, closer to catfish and carp. Picture a wet gray sock standing up out of a puddle to press its chin against your leg. 860 volts is the most powerful living source of electricity ever measured, and it's aiming. The Conger Eel. This is what's on the other end of the line when a North Atlantic wreck trip goes wrong. The European conger reaches around 3 meters and up to 240 pounds, living in wrecks, rock cracks, and harbor walls. 240 pounds of eel in a harbor wall, next to where people swim. Cool. And the biggest ones ever landed had never reproduced. Not once. Everything about this fish is a savings account. It spends decades in cold coastal rock doing nothing but eating and getting larger, which is honestly relatable. Egg count scales with body size, so a fish that gets one shot should arrive as big as physically possible. Then it stops feeding entirely, swims out over abyssal water, and releases several million eggs. Confirmed spawning grounds sit 600 meters down off Sardinia, with a suspected Atlantic site over depths of 3,000 to 4,000 meters. Every conger makes that trip exactly once. The largest congers ever pulled out of the Atlantic weighed as much as a grown man, and every one of them was carrying eggs it never got to release. Down here, getting bigger buys you time. It never buys you a future. The Gulper Eel. This thing drifts directly beneath most shipping lanes, and almost nobody has ever seen a living one. Its most famous ability is completely real. It just isn't what the animal does for a living. The pelican eel runs about 75 centimeters and lives between 550 and 3,000 meters down. Its lower jaw alone is about a quarter of its total body length. On a 6-foot human, that's an 18-inch chin, and it unfolds forward like an umbrella opening in wind. The tail tip glows pink and can flash red. Down there, food is scarce and unpredictable, so the body isn't built to overpower a big meal. It's built to never miss a small one. The jaw and throat go enormous while the muscle stays weak, which makes the whole thing a net rather than a weapon. Turns out the line about swallowing prey bigger than itself oversells it badly. Stomach studies come back full of small crustaceans and squid, because those jaws are too weak to hold anything that fights back. Somewhere along the line, biology built the biggest mouth in the deep sea, and then handed it a diet of things the size of a fingernail. The wolf eel. Divers in the cold North Pacific describe meeting the same individual in the same rock den across a decade of dives. Everything about the head is wrong for what this animal is. It's not a true eel for a start. It's a wolffish, with paired gill slits and pectoral fins no real eel has. Up front, canine-like teeth for gripping. In the back, blunt molars for crushing, because its diet is armored. Sea urchins, crabs, hard-shelled mollusks. The head is a can opener. Urchins don't run, they just refuse to open. So what pays off is jaw pressure, not speed. And that reliable armored food is why the pair bond works. Wolf eels mate for life, hold one crevice, and guard the egg mass jointly, the female coiled around it while the male stands watch. A pair moves into a crack as young fish, and ends up as 8 feet of adult fish, sharing a hole roughly the size of a kitchen cabinet. That reputation comes almost entirely from the face. In practice, it's among the calmest big fish in the Pacific. So it has the worst face in the North Pacific and the most stable domestic life on the reef. The ribbon eel. You could photograph 3 of these on one dive, log them as 3 separate species, and be wrong all 3 times. The jet black one, the electric blue one, and the bright yellow one are the same animal at 3 points in its life. Juveniles are black with a yellow fin. Adult males are vivid blue. Adult females go entirely yellow. The body reaches about a meter and stays as thick as a drinking straw. It's a protandric hermaphrodite. It starts male and converts to female with maturity. And the reason is arithmetic. A small animal produces sperm fine, but egg production scales with body size. So you spend your small years male and your large years female. And the color shift advertises which stage you're in. Of every moray on Earth, this is the only one known to change color alongside sex. Same tube, same mouth, and somewhere in there, a switch that rewrites what sex the animal is. It looks less like a fish and more like a party streamer that grew a nervous system. And nobody has ever confirmed one completing that change in the wild, which means the most photographed eel on the reef is still doing the biggest thing in its life somewhere none of us can watch. The Snipe Eel. This is one of the most common large animals in the deep open ocean, built in a way no shallow water fish would survive. Its mouth doesn't shut. That's not an injury. Its long, thin jaws curve away from each other at the tips and never meet, so it swims mouth open, snagging small crustaceans on inward-facing teeth. Out in open midwater, there's nothing to corner prey against, so a mouth that closes is close to useless. What works is a comb. You have 33 vertebrae. A python runs to a few hundred. This thing carries around 750. More than any other animal currently known. Mature males shorten their jaws and lose their teeth entirely, changing so much that science once filed them as a separate species. Which is an embarrassing way to find out you've been studying one fish. It tracks once feeding stops mattering, because his only job left is finding a female in the dark. Imagine going through life unable to close your mouth, and that being the good design. It holds the vertebral record for the entire animal kingdom, and it spins that spine drifting through the black with its jaws stuck open. Past the last of the sunlight, efficient stops being the point. Possible is the whole bar. The One-Jawed Eel. Science has physically held this animal fewer times than most people have had birthdays, and every specimen makes the anatomy harder to explain. It's missing the bones that every other jawed vertebrate is defined by. One-jaws have no upper jaw at all. No maxilla, no premaxilla, nothing. Its pectoral fins are absent, or reduced to flaps of skin, and the bones at the front of the skull are fused into a single fang that projects down into the mouth, connected to glands that turn venomous in adults. Study of that fang points to a function close to a venomous snake's: stab, inject, hold. Which is a strange piece of equipment to find on a fish the length of a paperclip. They live below 2,000 meters in every ocean, usually 4 to 10 centimeters long. Down there, the reliable food is shrimp, which are fast and armored, and a fish this small can't outmuscle one, so chemistry replaces force. Losing the upper jaw and the fins is that logic pushed further. A body that never has to chase, chew, or maneuver can stop building the parts that do those jobs. It gave up half of its own face, and what it built out of the leftover bone was a snake fang. The European Eel. This animal has sat in European rivers and drainage ditches for all of recorded history, and we still haven't documented it reproducing. The common version of this is wrong. It's not that nobody looked. Aristotle was writing about the problem more than 2,000 years ago, and landed on eels coming out of mud. Sigmund Freud dissected roughly 400 of them in 1876, looking for reproductive organs, and found nothing. 2,000 years of the smartest people available, and the best anyone managed was a guess at the address. Larvae drift 6,000 kilometers on Atlantic currents to reach Europe, where the eel spends 3 to 20 years in fresh water. Then it transforms. The eyes enlarge dramatically for deep blue water, and the belly turns silver, and the digestive tract degenerates. Because a fish that will never eat again doesn't need one. The energy goes into reproduction. Then it swims 5 to 10,000 kilometers to the Sargasso Sea, spawns, and dies. Throwing away your own stomach is a bold way to prepare for the longest trip of your life. One shape, a tube with a mouth, and the strangest thing that shape ever did was dissolve its own digestive system, swim until Europe was gone, and vanish into water we still can't follow it into. The European eel is now listed as critically endangered, with recruitment down roughly 95% since the 1980s. We have never once seen one spawn, and the window to try is narrowing. I put out a new animal video every week, so hit subscribe and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.